dialogue when you were president, because part of what you did was go around the country and have thousands, literally, conversations.
Exactly. We visited some 50-odd cities, talking to tens of thousands of people at all levels of society. But what it was part of was explaining high gasoline prices in 2007 and 2008. Guess what's softening the economy right now in 2012? High gasoline prices. To Bruce's point about we don't have a national government that's functional, it's dysfunctional. It's not just functional, or it's just not functional, it's dysfunctional, which is an aggravated effort by members of that government to make sure it doesn't work. And you see it play out in the partisan perversity that we see, where it's no at any cost by both parties. A Democratic Senate that hasn't had a budget in however many days, they count by the days because it's in the 1,000 number, or you have a House that says absolutely no to something the Senate wants to do. And as Bruce said, you know, something as simple as the Ex-Im Bank approval, which should be a no-brainer. Months of effort, absurd. And so the citizens have to understand this. And I think the part of a leader, what a leader has to do is never lose touch with grassroots. Whether it's the consumers pulling into the forecourt, whether it's the voter who is very worried about the future of gasoline prices. And the reason the economy softens so quickly, as soon as gasoline hits $3.80, you can watch the economy just fall. We saw this in 2011. When the stock market fell, the economy fell, jobs didn't get created because the gas price hit $3.80 somewhere around the April timeframe. This year, it was more like the March timeframe. Next year, it'll be the February timeframe, because we're doing nothing to solve the larger problem. And what people forget is that half of America lives on less than $50,000 a year. Less than $50,000 a year. And so if you're paying rent or a mortgage, you're paying your health insurance, you're paying for your utilities, and you're paying for your children's school needs and so forth, you don't have much money left. Because you got a family of four at $50,000, median family income. And so there's just nothing left to buy, but you got to buy gas because you got to get to work, because there's no public transportation that you can rely on. And so everything else goes by the wayside. A friend of mine who was on the Walmart board, who's not there anymore, said we used to count, as the gas price would rise, we could count discarded items in the store. That's something that people had picked it up, they were going to buy it, but as they went through, they had to make choices and they just discard the item. He said as soon as the gasoline price would hit a certain point, we could see discarded items skyrocket, which cost us sales, also cost us the inconvenience of putting it back on the shelf. But that was a minor complaint. But it was really a reflection of how tight people's lives are. And we have to understand that in the richest nation in the world. And so I think part of leadership to me is we have a real serious leadership void in this country, and perhaps the world, where most of our today's leaders are thinking in a 20th century paradigm when we're living in a 21st century world where everything's different. But many, many leaders don't get it, that it's different. And one of the big differences is, and I'm so glad that the Brookings Institution and J.P. Morgan Chase are doing this, one of the big differences is you've got to think ahead. The reason the China economy is so robust and is going to continue to be robust is the long-term planning, the long-term thinking. When our leaders, political, think in 2-year dimensions, at best, 2-year dimensions, or this month's poll, or this week's poll, or today's poll. And our corporate leaders think in terms of next quarter, or this quarter. And our institutional leaders at universities or what have you think about this year's revenue from the state budget. That's not a long term enough. And so one of the things that I think leaders don't get is how important the time span of their personal horizon has to be. And in large institutions, in the political world, in the corporate world, long-term time horizons, I think, have to reach out to 25 plus years. And if we're not thinking 25 years in advance, shame on us. And I would want to put in a plug here. I'd love the Brookings people to take this back with them. This region, under Catherine Mosbacher's leadership, and Catherine, I think you're here. Yes, you are. At the Center for Houston's Future, this region, 10-county region, put together a program called Scenarios 2040. It's not a precise roadmap, but it is a vision, actually two visions, of what Houston and its 10-county region could be looking ahead to 2040. And it's designed as a tool that leaders from all of what Bruce would call the network, the collaborative network of leaders, from corporations to government to institutions, medical center, for example, universities, community organizations such as neighborhood centers, where the leaders of these organizations can see what the choices are so that they make choices, intelligent choices, could be according to this scenario, could be according to that scenario, or something in between. Scenarios are not predictive of the future. They're just suggestions of what it could look like. And so leaders who have a time span of horizon that extends out over a couple of decades have to look at all the factors that are out there and make choices, sometimes hard choices. And part of the leadership void that I see today is too many leaders are locked in a pandering paradigm where they pander for support, or they're locked in a populist paradigm where they'll divide and rule for whatever their authority is, and that just, and in a short time frame, that's a death knell to a vibrant economy or to a prosperous region. And so the scenarios are being rolled out as we speak across the 10-county region, and they represent, whether it's, you know, the county judges or the city mayors or the corporate leaders or whomever it might be, they represent, I think, what is remarkable about Houston, because I don't know how many other metropolitan regions have ever done something like this. As we checked, I think Boston may have done it, and if you've ever been to Boston in the last 15 years, it's a transformed metropolitan region. They've had a mayor for 30 some odd years who's a dynamic personality who won't let anybody do anything wrong in his metropolitan region, but he keeps getting reelected, so they must like what he's doing. And so Boston's been very, very successful, and because it's had a plan. Houston has the opportunity to have a plan with leaders collaborating on what that plan looks like, so that we don't end up, as one of the scenarios paints a picture of, you know, a collection of gated communities where we don't talk to each other. And the educational system is a we-they. You know, we with money have this educational system, and they that don't, they get whatever's left, if anything. And the divisiveness and the social and cultural and political problems that surfaces within the one scenario versus another scenario where we figure out early on that, look, hey, we all live here. And if we're going to live here, how do we work together so that we can solve the problems we face and take care of our next generations who will also live here and live on the great capabilities that exist in this region, the unique capabilities that exist. And so this to me is an important part of leadership, and that is getting the future right.